Support for NPR and the following message come from Warby Parker, the one-stop shop for all your vision needs. They offer expertly crafted prescription eyewear, plus contacts, eye exams, and more. For everything you need to see, visit your nearest Warby Parker store or head to warbyparker.com.
I was what my elders might call a late bloomer. I finished college about a year into the 2008 financial crisis. So instead of spending those first months post-college adjusting to my new job, new city, and new apartment, I was sleeping on a futon in the living room of my sister's apartment, working part-time at the Nordstrom in Pentagon City Mall. And that was before I moved back in with my parents. You could say I was down bad. And today, young adults are also struggling to reach many traditional markers of adulthood, from moving out and getting a job to marrying and having children. In 1975, almost half of 25 to 34-year-olds had experienced all four of these milestones. But today, we're looking at less than a quarter of American adults in that age range having met all four.
It's harder to find a job that pays a living wage in today's economy compared to 1975.
That's Nancy Hill, professor of education and developmental psychologist at Harvard University.
When you think about the 5 markers that you listed, getting a job and finishing one's education are almost prerequisites for the other 3, which is finding a life partner, moving out and finding your own place, and having kids. And there's a lot of research that shows that young people don't want to embark on those other aspects of adulthood until they have a secure financial source.
But when I reflect on my own failure to launch era, I grew in other ways. I coached a competition-winning girls' sports team. I visited my college friends in their hometowns. And I even took over all the cooking duties at my parents' house.
Well, it's so interesting that maturity, which is like an inner state, is so linked to these material milestones.
That's Catherine Jaser-Morton, writer for New York Magazine and The Cut.
The adults who are staying home right now and working and trying to ready themselves to launch, I don't necessarily think that they're any less mature than any previous iteration of adults who are off on their own. 18-year-olds getting married, to me, that feels real young.
When you turn on the news, there's always a new report about how Gen Z seems to be less eager in meeting some of those social markers of adulthood as well. They're dating less and having less sex. So what's informing this generational failure to launch? And is it really fair to categorize it that way? I'm here with Nancy and Catherine to find out. Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. All right, y'all, before we get into it, I want to shout out a recent NPR donor and It's Been a Minute fan, Mariah in California. She says, I deeply appreciate podcasts like It's Been a Minute for providing context to our current moment in an entertaining and informative way. I hope you all are taking care of yourselves in these times and making space in your lives for exercise, rest, and moments of awe. Mariah, that is so kind and good advice too. Thank you so much. We're giving Mariah a special shout out because tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, a global day of generosity NPR celebrates every year. But for us, this year is different. You've probably heard that federal funding for public media was eliminated as of October 1st. That means NPR is now operating without federal support for the first time in our history, more than 50 years. It's a big change and a big challenge, but it's one that we can overcome together. This Giving Tuesday, I'm asking that you take the next step and sign up for NPR Plus. It's an easy way to support public media and get special perks for all of NPR's podcasts. And you'll be supporting public media while you listen. Join us at plus.npr.org. And I'll leave a link in the description of this episode. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get into some culture. I'm wondering, is the U.S. unique in how we think about early adulthood? I'm wondering, how is it different from other countries?
Well, I think in any of the collectivist cultures, which is basically everyone else except for the United States, Europe, and Australia, um, it's not uncommon to live with your parents until you get married, even if you don't get married until you're 40. So this idea of having to launch off in a nuclear family on your own is very Western cultural centric.
Yeah, any thoughts about that, Catherine?
Caregiving moves in multiple directions, right? In the West, we have a pretty narrow view of it. Everything kind of moves in one direction. Like you're just getting older and older and older and older. And then it's awkward when you're really old and you can't care for yourself because we like haven't quite thought that through well in our culture. We're on an upward arc always in our fantasies.
Oh, that's like such an American idea. I think I can't remember whether it's like a Dale Carnegie thing or something like that, but there's this idea we're supposed to constantly be moving on the upward spiral.
Onward and upward, they say.
Yeah.
Onward and upward. And not only onward and upward, but increasingly independent. In Western cultures, we move from a dependency into independence.
I mean, now this is the thing. So like on one hand, like even when you talk about like becoming more emotionally independent, like as a teenager, I think if I'm not mistaken, a word for that is used like as a psychological term is like individuating, like, forming your own, personality and forming your own value system that's separate than your family of origin. I imagine that some of that is helpful, but yeah, I also wonder like, it seems like there's definitely some value to multi-generational living and taking some approaches from like more collectivist cultures, which is very different than the United States. But also like, I think many people get something out of, on some level, feeling like they've individuated from their family and they can live their own life and make their own choices. Like, where's the line? How do we strike the balance?
I mean, I think that you can, as a parent, give your kids space to become themselves under your own roof. I think that's absolutely a possibility. And you see it happening in our culture. I think that's part of why young people are staying home more is that they can be themselves under their own roof. When we look at this like golden age of individuation of, the 50s, like another reason why people left home was because often, there was a conservatism around the domestic that young people didn't want to be a part of anymore. They felt constrained by it. I'm speaking very general terms here. Obviously, there's plenty of conservatism in the world of domestic today. But I do think that there's a possibility that exists to be, have a different kind of identity or a different set of values and coexist with your parents.
I mean, I think there are ways in which the parent-young adult relationship evolves from the parent-adolescent stage to a parent-young adult stage. And if they can renegotiate that in ways that make sense, then it's often beneficial to everyone to live under the same roof.
Okay, so I can understand why, young adults would find it hard in today's economy to hit those traditional markers of adulthood. I mean, I lived with my parents after college, and it still took me another 3 years after that to find steady full-time work. And it took me more time after that to actually get to a career path. So, I know these things take time. But also, statistics show that Gen Z and Gen Alpha, like they aren't dating or having sex as much as previous generations did at the same age. They aren't partying as much as previous generations did at the same age. I wonder, like, why does it seem like post-millennial teens and young adults aren't itching to express their independence in those same kinds of ways?
I feel like a big part of the story is like the technological digital world that younger people have grown up inside of and that they consider to be their home. And I do think that the surveillance and tracking technologies that they have been using since they were little as just part of daily life on the one hand, it helps people to feel safe, and you are sort of within this panoptic environment, even in the social world. I think that's really inhibiting for some people.
I would agree with that 100%. The other thing I was thinking about is what are the parenting ideologies that we have now that are different than in generations past. And today we have much more child-centered, child-focused parenting than we've had in prior generations. But a lot of the risky behaviors that you're talking about are often of a category of rebelling.
Yeah.
So they're rebelling against something, they're breaking the rules and, thumbing their nose at authority. And you don't have that same kind of feeling. And I think it's in part because they are not feeling like they have to rebel from their parents because their parents are having much more discussion-oriented rule making and discussion-oriented disciplinary strategies. My own kids, I have 2 kids, they're like, oh dear, here comes mom with all her words. She has so many words. And I said, you're right, I do. I'm proud of it.
Coming up.
So you need to work the low wage, no benefit job because that's where everybody starts. And you need to pay your dues and work your way up. And there's no longer a promise in that.
Stay with us.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Warby Parker, the one-stop shop for all your vision needs. They offer expertly crafted prescription eyewear, plus contacts, eye exams, and more. For everything you need to see, visit your nearest Warby Parker store or head to warbyparker.com. This message comes from Schwab. Everyone has moments when they could have done better, like cutting their own hair or forgetting sunscreen, so now you look like a tomato. Same goes for where you invest. Level up and invest smarter with Schwab. Get market insights, education, and human help when you need it. Learn more at schwab.com.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest. Start your risk-free trial at greenlight.com/NPR. This message comes from the Council for Interior Design Qualification. Interior designer and CIDQ president Siavash Madani describes his fundamentals of interior design.
I think interior design is about responsibility. It's not just the way a space looks or the way a space photographs. To me, better design means functional, safe, accessible, and inclusive design.
Learn more at cidq.org/NPR.
Pulling out like sort of how many people either think about their youth or remember it or think about being young more broadly. A lot of people, myself included, remember their early adulthood as a time of struggle. They lived in a shoebox apartment that they shared with roommates and cockroaches. In my case, on more than one occasion, I had mice, serious mice. Or they worked several jobs to make ends meet. Or, they lived kind of precariously as they were finding their footing in life. Why do we think of the 20s as a time where young people are kind of supposed to struggle and pay their dues? And I question whether that idea of like young struggle is like helpful to young people or harmful.
The expectation that things are going to be hard is not unhealthy. And I think that maybe it's overplayed and it can lead to people being cautious. But I feel like it is hard to try anything new. And so I think it's fair that one might expect that, your 20s are going to be a little tough.
Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that when people look back on their lives, they often tell an origin story of how they came and the paths not taken and the lucky break or whatever. And I think there is a glory in an origin story that comes with a struggle. We interview older people about their coming of age, and they forget some of the anxiety and uncertainty that they had in their 20s because they tell the story because they know the end from the beginning. So they know that it works out okay, whatever okay looks like, even if okay isn't what they thought it was going to be. They tell a story that has an origin of struggle, but has a end of, I made it. Because in the end, we all make it, right? To some degree or another. And so I think there is this origin story phenomenon.
Does that make it harder sometimes to kind of connect to or create policy that actually supports young people as they begin their adult lives?
Yeah, I think it does affect it. I think that we talk about the people in their 20s without a lot of compassion and without a lot of empathy. We think, oh, they're frivolous. They're wasting their time. They're just, partying. Only they don't even know how to party, it turns out. And then we set policy as if, if they had the money, they aren't going to be doing anything useful. They're just going to waste it. And so then we don't see the struggle that they're in. Who cares if young people are working in the gig economy with no benefits and no control over their schedule and not a lot of money, if all they're going to do is buy pizza with it? But the vast majority of young people are not in 4-year residential colleges buying pizza. Many of them are trying to pay rent. Many of them are young parents. Many of them are working the gig economy as their main source of income while trying to raise a young child. We don't think about the 20s as being responsible adults, and because we don't treat them like that. We're saying they're delaying, and we're saying it's frivolous, and so we don't make policies that actually meet the needs of most 20-somethings in America.
I agree with Nancy that like this kind of cognitive bias of everything's going to work out because for older folks it has, I think really is consequential. It's like you shouldn't have it easy because if you do, then you won't learn the hard lessons that I had to learn that make me this person that I am today. Like, I think it's unfair to expect people to suffer in a particular way in order to make them more mature. I just think these are cognitive biases that we have as older people that we should correct for. And I'm just thinking back and I'm like, you know what? That's a real insight that Nancy just made.
Catherine, one of your comments is this idea of young people paying their dues. So you need to work the low wage, no benefit job because that's where everybody starts. And you need to pay your dues and work your way up. And there's no longer a promise in that. Back in the economy where people started in a position and started with a company and worked their way up, there was a benefit to paying dues because you were buying into something, whether it was with your own sweat equity or with lower wage. And you were expecting that you worked hard and were loyal to the company was going to be loyal to you. But companies aren't loyal to their workers anymore.
Yes, I mean, we can't say that there's not a single company that has remained loyal to employees, but when you look at the fact that over 1 million people have been laid off this year alone, across industries from media, government, finance, energy, automotive, retail, and many, many more, yeah, I can understand the sentiment that many people, Gen Z included, feel that the companies they work for aren't loyal to them.
And most people are not in a union anymore. I think they're making a wise calculus. We want young people to feel like they belong to society. We want them to have a societal identity, a community identity, and we want them to be engaged, which means we have to be willing for them to make changes so it becomes more like what they want. And then we need to, as older people, need to let go of it a little bit and let them take the reins so that they can make it their own.
Nancy, Catherine, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I got a lot out of this, even as somebody who is a non-parent and thus I'm not dealing with any of these kinds of things on a day-to-day basis. It's made me think a lot differently about, how to support the next generation more broadly going forward. So thank you both so much.
Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah, thanks.
That was Nancy Hill, professor of education and developmental psychologist at Harvard University, and Catherine Jaser Morton, writer for New York Magazine and The Cut. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Corey Antonio Rose.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from Vital Farms, who works with small American farms to bring you pasture-raised eggs. Farmer Tanner Pace shares a moment that brings him a sense of purpose.
I think that when the barn doors open and the hens run to the paddocks, you can truly see what a happy hen really is. I love pasture-raised eggs because you can see the work and the pride that the farmers have and have put into these eggs.
To learn more about how Vital Farms farmers care for their hens, visit vitalfarms.com.
This message comes from KeyBank. Growing a successful business has never been easy. That's why KeyBank offers curated strategies to help your business grow today and into the future. Reimagine business as usual. KeyBank opens doors. More at key.com/B2B. This message comes from Solidigm. Yesterday's approach to storage can't meet the demands of today's AI ambitions. Bigger, faster, and more energy efficient, Solidigm solid-state storage solutions are optimized for AI. Learn more at storageforai.com.